He rules the world with a staff and a rod. We're a team, me and God. Good morning and good day to you, brothers and sisters. Welcome back again. Still talking about Damascus, the city of Damascus, and when it's going to fall. I've already completed a lesson talking about the final fall of Damascus. That's at the seventh bowl when Jesus returns in person. But in this lesson, we're going to look at the majority of Isaiah 7. We were in Isaiah 17 for the final fall of Damascus. But now in Isaiah 7, we're looking at when Damascus falls to the beast kingdom. All right, we're looking at, in other words, mid-trib, early second half events. And we're going to talk about the persecution of the saints, persecution of the Christians during the fifth seal. That's a big part in Isaiah 7. Okay, so that's what we're looking at. Mid-trib or mid-70th week of Daniel here in Isaiah 7. And the sins of Israel, the sins of Damascus, and then we'll look at the second half of Isaiah 7. Look what's coming on both of them, Damascus and Jerusalem. All right, but don't confuse it with Isaiah 17, which is the final fall of Damascus, when Jesus resurrects his bride army and defeats Babylon, these cities, that night at the seventh bowl, the great battle of the day of God Almighty. But here in Isaiah 7, again, we're going to be talking about the Christian persecution and the sign of Amos 8 in the sun and the moon. That's the left bookend of the 42-month period, and how it begins, and then what comes upon Damascus and Jerusalem at that time. So I'm not going to start at verse 1 of chapter 7. I do want to start at verse 10. In this lesson, we're going to start here at verse 10 in Isaiah 7 and read to the end of the chapter. And I'll give you the understanding given to me by the Holy Spirit. And then in another lesson, we'll take a look at Isaiah 8. All right. Isaiah 7, verse 10, dealing with Damascus and Jerusalem. Moreover, the Lord spoke again to Ahaz, saying, Ask a sign for yourself from the Lord your God. Ask it either in the depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, nor will I test the Lord. Then he said, Hear now, O house of David, it is a small thing for you to weary men, but will you weary my God also? Okay, this is Isaiah talking, right? Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that you dread will be forsaken by both her kings. I'll read one more, then we'll talk about it. The Lord will bring the king of Assyria. Nope. I'm going to stop right there at the end of 16. Let's talk about this. Then verse 17 moves us into a whole new phase. All right, verses through verses 16. What in the world is going on? A lot of people who study eschatology right now are really focusing in on chapter 7 and chapters 8 and chapter 17 of Isaiah. All right, let's talk about this. Now, the sign, I really do believe that this sign we're talking about here, this is the 70th week. This is not something that happened around after Christ was resurrected and the fall of Jerusalem in AD 70. These chapters are all about the 70th week of Daniel. Isaiah 7 is about the 7th week of Daniel. Its warnings and its information for the bride is for the 70th week of Daniel. Well, how do you know that, brother? Well, look at the second half of Isaiah 7. That is all, from verse 17 on, that is all about the coming flood of Muslim jihad nations. It's all about that. It's all about the 7 weeks. This is not about Romans conquering the Middle East. This is about the last days. The day when the Lord will return, and they will look upon him with respect. All right? This is the day of the Lord. Now, the sign that you see mentioned in verses 11 and verse 14 here in Isaiah chapter 7, this sign is the sign you read about in Amos 8. No, it doesn't sound like it at first. It talks about Jesus being a sign. Okay? I used to be pretty certain that this was a sign that you're going to see using the program stellarium.org, where using the constellation Virgo and Leo with the sun clothing the Virgin, and the moon under her feet, and the stars and planets aligned in such a manner as you have the 9 stars, the constellation Leo, in conjunction with 3 of our own planets, making a total of 12 stars above the head of the Virgin. And it may be, that comes on 23 September 2017 if you're not familiar with it. But here in July 2015, I'm gaining understanding every month. Doesn't mean I got it all right. And it may have something to do with that. But I now believe, all right, I now believe that this sign is, which you see here, is the Amos 8 sign, which, hear me out now, is a result of the 30 days of Christian persecution inside of Israel during the 5th seal. I'll say it again. I believe now that this is the Amos 8 cosmic sign of the 6th seal. Amos 8, 6th seal, cosmic sign in the sun and the moon, the left bookend of the day of the Lord. I believe it's a result of the 30 days of the 5th seal, persecution of the Christians inside of Israel. I believe that this sign is the Amos 8 sign where the Bible says the sun goes down on the prophets. Have you ever read that? The sun goes down on the prophets of Israel. Why? Because Israel was fearing all of the surrounding Muslim nations. This is what's going to happen. They're going to fear them. I don't know if America is still in the equation or not. I don't. But for some reason, Israel wants peace so bad. And earlier in chapter 7, it talked about Syria and others plotting to come against Israel, especially Jerusalem, all right, and to take over the land. Okay, maybe we're not talking about a beast kingdom at that point. Maybe at that point we're talking about Damascus being part of the caliphate. I'm not sure. But here, after verse 10, Israel is worried. The prophets of Israel, which are going to come out in droves, false prophets, you're going to see them coming out in Israel. I don't know what's going to trigger it. Maybe it's the 1 out of every 4 people dying in the Middle East due to the caliphate trying to become a beast kingdom you read about in the first 4 seals of the book of Revelation. Maybe that's what triggers it. But you're going to have false prophets all over Israel giving counsel to the leaders of Israel. That's going to happen. And Christians are really getting in the way. There's going to be agreements made, like you see in Daniel 11, verse 21, 22, 23. There's going to be agreements being made. And a lot of it's got to do with the Temple Mount. And you read about surveys and plumb lines going out. And the Christians inside of Israel, especially Jerusalem, are really getting in the way. They won't shut up. They only make up about 2 or 3% of the population of Israel. And most of them are Arab Christians living inside of Israel. But they won't shut up. They're saying that the time of the end is here. They're holding up signs. They're picketing, they're boycotting, they won't shut up. They're saying don't make any deals with the Muslims. The false Messiah is coming. They keep taking out the Holy Bible and say, see here in the Holy Bible, it says this was all going to happen just the way that it's happening. The prophets of Israel are going to tell the leaders of Israel, we've had enough, we must silence the Christians now. So what happens? Well, Zechariah 11 and Daniel 11, did you catch that? Zechariah 11 says that the poor who watch and understand know that this is God's work, what's going to go on during the 70th week of Daniel. And they know they're about to be persecuted. That's in Zechariah 11. You need to read it. Daniel 11. Okay, I'll take you there right now. Daniel 11. Let's go there. And you'll get a much better understanding of the 5th and 6th seal. Most Christians do not realize that the Antichrist goes into the temple twice. He goes into the temple at the 5th seal to stop the daily sacrifices and to set up the abomination of desolation, but at that time he exalts himself as high as the Prince of Hosts. Did you catch that? How do I know? Because that's what it says right here in Daniel 8:11. Daniel 11, Zechariah 11, and Daniel 8:11 are important. He exalts himself as high as the Prince of Hosts. That's the Messiah, Jesus. Okay, if you look at Daniel 11, verse 29 starts the time of the 5th seal. All right, daily sacrifice is taken away, the abomination of desolation is set up, he exalts himself as high as the Prince of Hosts, the Messiah. Then it starts a 30-day period where the people of understanding who instruct many are scourged. They're killed. They fall by the sword and flame, captivity and plundering. I mean, they're in trouble. They are in trouble. It's the poor who watch. Okay, Matthew 24 warns about it. Mark 13, Luke 21. These poor Christians who instruct many, who won't shut up, that it's all in the Holy Bible. The prophets tell the leaders it's time to confiscate all the Holy Bibles inside of Israel, and let's put these Christians on trial. But it backfires against them because it's televised, it's videotaped, and they start speaking in tongues. Hallelujah. But anyways, the results are a lot of Christians being rounded up and a lot of them dying and all the Holy Bibles being burned. That lasts for 30 days. Well, how do you know it's 30 days, brother? Well, because the 42-month period between the 6th seal, when the sun goes down on the prophets, and you have the left bookend sign of the day of the Lord, Isaiah 13, Amos 8, the sign in the sun and the moon, Father is angry. He will no longer pass by Israel. All right, he hides his face from Israel. For how long? 42 months, starting at the 6th seal, which is a result of what? The 5th seal, persecution of the Christians inside of Israel. Well, if that's all 5th seal, where at in Daniel does the 6th seal take place? Well, it tells you right here in verse 36. He goes back to the temple again, and now he exalts himself, magnifies himself as high as the God of gods. Verse 36. Didn't know that, did you? Okay, now you have the Amos 8 sign, the sign of the sun going down on the prophets, starting the 42-month period. The protection of Judah is off, and that's the sign I believe you're reading about in Isaiah chapter 7. It's the result of the 30 days. Oh, how do I know it's 30 days? Well, you have 1,260 days. It's from the 6th seal to the 7th trumpet. You with me? But we know that from the 5th seal to the 7th bowl is 1,335 days. 5th seal to the 7th bowl. How do we know that? Because of the last few verses of Daniel 12. There it is right there. Read it for yourselves. 45 days of the bowls of wrath. both countdowns starting at the 5th seal, but the 42 months, sun going down on the prophets, where Father hides his face from Israel and will no longer pass by and removes the protection of Judah because of what they did to the Christians during the 5th seal. This 6th seal sign is 1260 days. From the 6th seal to 7th trumpet. 7th trumpet to 7th bowl is 45 days. Okay, what is that? That's 1,305 days. But from the 5th seal to the 7th bowl is 1,335 days. That leaves 30 days left from the 5th seal to the 6th seal. If you got any questions, ask in the comments below. But I wanted you to see this. This is the same as the poor people who watch in Zechariah chapter 11. Going back to our lesson in Isaiah 7, again, I don't believe that this sign is the one possible sign that's coming up in 23 September 2017 in the stars, which is very interesting. I think it only happens like once in every 7,000 years or more. All right, and that could play a part, but I believe that's the left bookend day of the Lord, 6th seal cosmic signs, sun going down on the prophets you read about in Amos 8. Now, let's read verse 14 again. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to what? Refuse the evil and choose the good. Some people might say, oh, that's refuse the mark of the beast. Now I get it. No, the mark of the beast test is not administered yet. Why? Because the fly and the bee, the antichrist massive army, the flood of jihad, has not arrived yet. Oh, no, it hasn't. This is the 5th seal, 30-day persecution of the Holy Bible and the Christians. So what evil are they refusing? Well, they're being scourged in the synagogues, and they're told to refuse the Holy Bible and the idea that Jesus is the Messiah and he will return someday. But they don't. They refuse the prophets and choose the Holy Bible and choose Jesus. These poor who watch, these people of understanding who instruct many. For 30 days they will be scourged and killed by the sword. And their houses will be pilfered, and plundered. The Christian neighborhoods, the Christian sectors inside of Jerusalem and Nazareth and things like that, places like that, okay, they're going to be wiped out. They will find the Holy Bibles and take them all. You better read your Holy Bible now. Will that happen to America? I have no idea what's going to happen to America. I don't. That's a little scary. But I believe that this sign is Amos chapter 8. Have you ever read Amos 8? Well, let's look at it real quick. I believe that that sign there, not the 23 September 2017 sign in the stars, I believe it's this one right here. All right, verse, 9 of Amos 8, and it shall come to pass in that day, says the Lord God, that I will make the sun go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in broad daylight. I will turn your feast into mourning. Okay, and you can just keep reading it. Okay, the famine will be for the truth. You can read all about that. That, I believe, is the 6th seal. Now, what was I talking about bookends of the day of the Lord? Well, the day of the Lord is between the 6th seal to the 7th bowl, but the 42-month period is between the 6th seal to the 7th trumpet, leaving the 45 days of the bowls of wrath. And there's 3 different purposes for the bowls of wrath. Okay, you've got the Lord now passing the cup of madness to the beast kingdom. Read about it. All the sores are going to be breaking out. But these sores are just going to make them that much more determined to gather themselves into the mountains of Israel, into the valley of Armageddon, to the wedding hall. So he turns the cup of madness, lets them drink of it. He gathers them, and he pours out his spirit on Israel, who's left alive during those 45 days, so they really, truly, once for all, start understanding that Jesus was and is and has always been their Messiah. And they start speaking in tongues. Now, I said that this is the left bookend of the day of the Lord. Again, the day of the Lord is from the sixth seal to the seventh bowl when Jesus returns. And actually, you can say into the next age, the 1,000-year, the millennial period, is also the day of the Lord. But the 42 months where the sun goes down on the prophets and Father hides his face from Israel and the protection of Judah comes off and he will no longer pass by Israel, that 42 months is from the sixth seal to the seventh trumpet, when the court in Daniel 7 announces the verdict, the judgment in favor of the saints, to award the kingdom to the saints. But they have to wait, hold fast, wait patiently, keep their wedding garments for 45 days until all the nations are gathered in place and Jesus is revealed. Okay, on day 1335 from the fifth seal, abomination of desolation. Okay, now that we got that straight, bookends. If you look at Isaiah 13, it's a good place to go to learn about the bookend, the day of the Lord, in regards to events and signs. Verses like the day of the Lord, verse 9 in Isaiah 13, cruel with both wrath and fierce anger. Here, the day of his fierce anger is the day Jesus returns in person to take the crown off the antichrist head, to end the 2300-day period between the first seal and the seventh bowl. That's a whole nother lesson. And it talks about the sign of the left bookend, but it says that the stars in heaven and their constellations will not give their light, the sun will be darkened in its going forth, the moon will not cause its light to shine, I will punish the world for its evil. All right? And then you look here, it says, therefore I will shake the heavens, and the earth will move out of her place in the wrath of the Lord of hosts. Okay? That's the sixth seal through the end of the sixth bowl. And's the key word there, in the day of his fierce anger. That's the seventh bowl when he returns in person. So all these signs are going to happen to start the wrath of the Lord of hosts at the sixth seal, making it very plain to Israel. Father's upset, and it begins the 42-month period where the authority has been granted by Father to Lucifer to use him and his army as his rod of indignation against Israel. And remember, they just finished 30 days of persecuting the Holy Bible and the Christians, the poor people who watch and understand and instruct many. All right? Now we're going to have these same signs at the seventh bowl, the day of his fierce anger. So that's what I mean by bookends. Okay? See my other videos. Maybe it'll help your belief and your understanding. You may not believe me in this lesson. You're going to have to study. All right, back to Isaiah 7. Where did we leave off at? All right, let's start at 14 again. Therefore the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Curds and honey he shall eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. Again, this is not, I don't believe this is necessarily a sign in the stars. The sun going down is, and the moon and all that. But this, and it could be the September 23, 2017 sign, but I don't think so. I think that's a little early. I don't think we've gotten that far yet. I think the Christian and how the Christians take the whip across their back and neck and head and legs, and just like Jesus did. All right, and they will refuse the evil. They will not deny Jesus, and many of them will be killed by the sword. Is that a beheading? I don't know. There will be a lot of beheadings going on once the Antichrist army invades the mountains of Israel and the city of Jerusalem. But during the fifth seal persecution of the saints by the prophets of Israel, I don't know if there will be beheadings, but many of them will be put to death. Now listen up. Before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, which is what, about a year. It takes about a year for a child to get old enough to know the difference between right and wrong. Let's say a year. The land that you dread, Damascus, will be forsaken by both her kings. Sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? But it's not. When you read the rest of Isaiah 7, you realize that this bad news on Damascus, within a year after the sign, which is Amos 8, starting the sixth seal, when the Antichrist went back in there the second time, exalted himself as high as the God of gods, and we just finished 30 days of the persecution of the Christians in the Holy Bible. It all culminates with that sign of Amos 8 and the sun and the moon and the stars, the left bookend of the day of the Lord. All right, within a year after the sixth seal sign, I say again, within a year after the sixth seal sign, Damascus is going to be overrun by what? What you read in the rest of Isaiah 7, this flood of Muslim jihad, Antichrist army. Okay? He's defeating all the nations in the Middle East. He's wiping them out. They're just, what's the right word? Not engulfing, but anyways, they're becoming part of the beast kingdom. But this is not the Isaiah 17 story where Damascus becomes a ruinous heap and will never, ever, ever be a city again. It'll just be used for flocks to graze. That's when Jesus comes on the last day of the age. This is mid-trib. This is a year, within a year after the sixth seal sign, when the Antichrist is speaking blasphemies. He went in the temple a second time, exalting himself as high as the God of gods, and it corresponds to the 30-day period of the persecution of the Christians. Now you have the flood of Muslim jihad, just railroading, just stone rolling. What's the right word? I mean, they're just going to roll over the Middle East, and they're coming to Israel, and they're going to pass through Damascus. All right, here we go. The Lord will bring the king of Assyria. This is the Antichrist now. Antichrist has many names for the 70th week of Daniel. This is one of them. The evil one. The one from Nineveh, Mosul, Iraq. According to the first chapter of the book of Nahum. The Lord will bring the king of Assyria upon you and your people and your fathers days that have not come since the day that Ephraim departed from Judah. It shall come to pass in that day. Hint, hint, stop, stop. We're talking about the 70th week of Daniel here, second half. Within a year after the seal cosmic sign, left book into the day of the Lord, within a year, that the Lord will whistle for the fly. So sometime during that year, after the sixth seal sign has already occurred, after the 42-month period has already occurred, sometime during that year, the Lord himself will whistle for the fly. This is the Lord's doing now. He's getting his rod of indignation ready to spank Israel and the whole Middle East. If you're not already part of the beast kingdom, you will be by the time this flood of jihad gets done. Here they come. They're on the march. Look where they come from. The Lord will whistle for the fly that is in the farthest part of the rivers of Egypt. What countries are the farthest part of the Nile River? It's where the Nile River begins. What is it? It's Central Africa, Sudan, Ethiopia, Somalia, maybe even as far as Boko Haram in Nigeria. Okay, Central Africa. This is the fly. The Lord will whistle for them. Let's go, boys. Let's go. Where are we headed? To take over Israel and any other parts of the Middle East we don't own yet. It's time to go. I am God. That's what the Messiah, that's what the false Messiah is going to tell him. All right? I'm not just here to bring peace between Israel and its neighbors. I am. He said I was the Messiah at the fifth seal. Now 30 days later at the sixth seal, he's back in that temple again. I'm God, and I say take the land now. And he's working miracles, and you know what? They believe him in Central Africa. They probably believe him in Indonesia, Malaysia, all the stand countries, Afghanistan, Pakistan, Turkey, Iran, Tunisia, Libya, Egypt, I tell you what, they believe them. They are on the move. Here they come. So that's the fly. Africa. Let's see who else the Lord whistles for. And for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. Okay. Here comes Iraq and Syria. The bee. They will come, and all of them will rest in the desolate valleys and in the clefts of the rocks. A lot of times the clefts of the rocks is a key phrase talk about Jordan. And on all those thorns. Well, I say that because of Og, of the king of Bashan, and all those stories that dealt with the clefts of the rocks. That's going kind of deep. Let's keep reading. And on all thorns and in all pasture, in the same day, the Lord will shave with a hired razor. Okay? Remember poor Ezekiel? In the same day, the Lord will shave with a hired razor with those from beyond the river, with the king of Assyria, the Euphrates River, the head and the hair of the legs, and will also remove the beard. And we're talking about Ezekiel chapters 4, 5, 6, and 7, all dealing about this same time. You need to read it. The hired razor. It shall be in that day that a man will keep alive a young cow and 2 sheep, so it shall be from the abundance of milk they give, that he will eat curds, for curds and honey everyone will eat who is left in the land. I'm telling you, there's going to be a period of hunger. It shall happen in that day that wherever there could be 1,000 vines worth 1,000 shekels of silver, it will be for briars and thorns. With arrows and bows men will come there. Oh, believe me, they're ready for war, because all of the land will become briars and thorns. All the land of Canaan. Okay? All this area is just going to be wiped out. And to any hill which could be dug with the hoe, you will not go there for fear of briars and thorns, but it will become a range for oxen and a place for sheep to roam. Now Isaiah 8, which we're not going to read in this lesson, continues on. It continues on and tells you what happens. All right? This rod of indignation that's coming on the mountains of Israel and coming to Damascus and that whole area of the land of Canaan. Okay, the Middle East, the antichrist army is coming and taking over, and they're growing their beast kingdom, and eventually you'll have the siege of Jerusalem begin. But yeah, Isaiah 8 finishes it and starts talking about the mark of the beast test that's going to be administered on the people of Israel. You read about in Zechariah chapter 13. Did you know that? The mark of the beast test is Father's doing that's going to be administered on Israel, and you read about it in Zechariah 13. It's the stone of stumbling, the rock of offense, the trap and the snare that's going to be on Israel and everyone else in that region. Take the mark or else. All right? That comes. But don't confuse that with the persecution of Christians here at the 5th seal for 30 days. All right, so that concludes Isaiah 7. If you got any questions, ask. But then if you want to know the outcome, you read Isaiah 8, and eventually Jesus returns at the 7th bowl. Okay, and you can read more about that in Isaiah 17 and 18, Zechariah 14, what the role of the army bride of Christ is going to be at that night. Are we involved in cutting up the terror sacrifice and Jesus lights it? That's in all over the Bible, but it's in Zechariah 14, Isaiah 17 and 18. Then you question, Isaiah 9. You can start reading about the millennial period and all of that. But that's Isaiah 7. I didn't go over the first few verses. It is a little confusing. I don't want to talk about the first 9 verses of Isaiah 7 until I've got it all down. But I think I'm close to understanding from verse 10 on to the end of the chapter. I don't believe that sign is talking about 23 September. Okay, 2017. I think this is the sign of Amos 8, the sixth seal sign, the left bookend of the day of the Lord, after the 30 days of persecution of the Christians. Then he goes back in the temple the second time, claims to be God, says attack, here they come, Father whistles for the fly and the bee to come upon the land of Canaan and to take over and administer the mark of the beast's test. You realize that is Father's doing. Why would Father do that to his own people? It's time to shake. It's time to come off the fence. Let's see which side of the fence you land on. We're not going to move into the millennial period until we have burned up all the tares. They've got to be cut in pieces. They've got to be bundled. They've got to be placed onto the altar on the threshing floor, and they've got to be burned by Jesus. The Jew and Gentile synagogue of Satan. All right, the seed cast by Lucifer from the foundations of the world, plus the seeds cast by Jesus that did not endure to the end. And they are not glorified when Jesus returns. Some of them will, who gave a testimony of Jesus at one point, will eventually take the mark of the beast during this time. 3 out of 4 Christians are going to be in danger of falling for this stone of stumbling, the trap and the snare. Okay? I hope this has been a blessing to you. I can't wait to see you next time. God bless.